Well, for anyone following crypto, especially miners, there's been this big question mark hanging over everything, right? Like, how does the SEC actually view proof of work mining? Is it a security? Isn't it? It's been really unclear.
Yeah, tons of uncertainty for sure, and a lot of back and forth. But the SEC just came out with a major statement. I mean, this is huge for the industry.
It is. We're diving deep into the SEC's declaration that proof of work mining, basically what powers Bitcoin and a bunch of other cryptos, it's not under their jurisdiction when it comes to securities laws.
Right, and we've got all the official documents and some great analysis right here, ready to break it all down.
Perfect. So in this deep dive, what we really want to do is cut through all the legal jargon, and figure out why this decision actually matters. Like, what does it mean for you if you're into crypto, if you're just curious about it, whatever.
Definitely, whether you're mining yourself or just trying to keep up with this crazy world of digital assets.
All right, so let's jump right in. The big news is the SEC basically came out and said, proof of work mining, not a security. End of story.
Yeah, they were very explicit about it, and people are calling this, a pivotal moment, a true regulatory breakthrough for the entire U.S. crypto mining industry, but especially, I mean, this is huge for Bitcoin miners.
Because their whole operation is built on proof of work, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so just for some context, I know most one listeners probably know this already, but the SEC, they're the federal agency, the watchdogs, making sure investors are protected and the markets are fair.
Right. They're the ones who step in when things get shady, trying to keep everything on the up and up.
And we've also seen some industry groups, like the Digital Chamber of Commerce, guys like Cody Carbone, pushing for clearer rules for the crypto world.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They want regulations that allow the industry to grow, but also make sure consumers are protected.
Right. Finding that balance is so crucial. So let's get into the real meat of this thing. Like, what was the reasoning behind this clarification from the SEC?
Well, one of the big things is that it just removes so much uncertainty, this cloud that's been hanging over mining operations. And that's true whether you're talking about, someone mining Bitcoin in their basement or these massive mining pools.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. For a long time, it's just been this gray area, like nobody knew where they stood.
Exactly. And it's interesting because what the SEC is basically saying is that mining is this technological activity. They're differentiating it from a financial instrument.
Yeah, that's a big distinction, right? It's not like you're buying stock in a company.
Exactly. And the core of their decision, how they got here, is actually this thing called the Howey test. I don't know if you've heard of that before.
Yeah, it rings a bell. It's basically a way to determine if something is an investment contract, right?
Right, right. And it has these four prongs. There has to be an investment of money. There has to be an expectation of profits from that investment. It has to happen within a common enterprise. And this is the key one here. There has to be a reliance on the efforts of others.
Okay, yeah. So how does that apply to somebody mining Bitcoin? Like, walk us through that.
Sure, so the SEC basically looked at and said, these proof-of-work miners, they're primarily using their own computers, their own resources. They're the ones putting in the effort to solve the complex math problems, to validate transactions on the blockchain. It's not like they're just sitting back and relying on somebody else to do all the work and just handing them profits.
Right, it's their own energy, their own computing power that's going into this.
Exactly. So it's a more nuanced understanding of the technology itself, right? They're moving away from this one-size-fits-all approach to regulation.
I see. It all hinges on that independent contribution from the miners themselves. So that's really interesting from a regulatory perspective, but I think the bigger question for a lot of people is like, what does this mean for the US in this global crypto landscape?
Well, this is where things get really exciting, I think, because this regulatory clarity, especially if we see it coupled with maybe some deregulation, tax incentives, it could honestly make the U.S. a leader in crypto mining.
Yeah, because other countries are being way stricter about this, right?
Absolutely. And this is a huge advantage for the U.S., especially when you think about how much harder mining is getting and how the rewards are structured. It just provides so much more predictability for miners.
Right, because you need that long-term view if you're going to invest in the hardware, the infrastructure.
Exactly. And I think we could see a lot more investment coming into the U.S., a lot more innovation happening here, which ultimately, makes proof-of-work blockchains like Bitcoin more secure, more decentralized.
Makes them stronger overall.
Yeah. Imagine, this wave of new mining operations popping up across the U.S. just because there's less regulatory burden.
It's an interesting thought. So to kind of sum up the big takeaway here for our listeners, the SEC is saying that proof-of-work mining in the U.S., it's not under their securities law jurisdiction. They're viewing these miners as independent contributors, not passive investors who are just relying on somebody else.
Exactly. And I think that raises a really interesting question for everyone listening. Given this regulatory clarity, right, this new landscape in the U.S., what kind of innovations are we going to see? How will proof-of-work technologies evolve from here? And how will this impact the whole distribution of mining power globally? I think those are the things to really watch in the coming months and years.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. Lots to keep an eye on.
Absolutely.
Thanks for breaking it all down.
Of course, happy to be here.